Hey guys, how is everybody doing? With the release of Captain America Brave New World out in theaters this Valentine's Day weekend and President's Day weekend, technically, today I'm going to be going through and reviewing the Captain America series, starting off with Captain America the First Avenger. Now, yeah, there are those things coming out on Twitter or whatever saying you don't need to watch the First Avenger, you don't need to watch this movie to understand Captain America Brave New World, but I'm more watching this because there's a new Captain America movie coming out, and I felt it would be okay to go ahead and just rewatch the first Captain America movie. Just for fun, something. Before I go ahead and talk about the first Avenger, I do want to talk about why I don't usually make comic book reviews because okay, so last year I did this for one of the first times. I had done this when I first started YouTube, but it was never really good quality videos. Those are old videos of mine that where I kind of wish they never existed, but they're there. You can go watch them. I reviewed Incredible Hulk and the Thor movies back when uh, She-Hulk and Love and Thunder were coming out. Those were terrible projects, by the way. And so I never really felt the urge to talk about comic book movies until last year when Deadpool Wolverine was coming out. And I'll leave a card up here for you to watch, or maybe at the end of the video, I'll have for you to watch my review series of the Wolverine movies and the Deadpool movies. That was the first time I had really done it. Like I say, really done it because those were the comic book reviews that I'm most proud of. And, I've never really felt the urge to talk about comic book movies because every time I feel like doing it, I don't feel like there is because there's like this huge thing in the comic and for us fans with comic book movies about comic book fatigue to where the comic book movies get repetitive and they get boring or whatever, and there's always a huge issue with it. That's why I never do it because of those controversies and all that. But starting with this new year, one of my New Year's resolutions was to try and talk about more comic book movies, and that's what one of my main goals of this year is going to be. We have a handful of them coming out this year, and I'm gonna have a lot of reviews leading up to those movies. Mainly Superman. You'll see what happens in July. So yeah, this is something I want to do more on my channel. This is something I want to try and do more. If it's not successful, I will continue to do it anyway because I make these videos for me. I make these videos just to have out there people want to watch them. So yeah, this is something I'm going to be doing for the rest of my YouTube-ish career or YouTube hobby right now since this is something I love doing. I love talking about movies and I love talking about comic book movies and I love comic book movies and I love superheroes. I love them, and what best way to show that is by talking about them. So, that all out of the way, let's talk about Captain America, the First Avenger. Starting off with my positives on Captain America, the First Avenger, is Chris Evans. Chris Evans is one of the best comic book castings of all time. We always talk about Robert Downey Jr., we always talk about Tobey Maguire, we always talk about Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, but one of those conversations in which he does get brought up, I always love talking about Chris Evans as the role of Captain America, aka Steve Rogers. Now, why I love him is just the charm that he brings to him and just how serious he takes this role, especially how different it is. Because before he played Steve Rogers, aka Captain America, he was Johnny Storm in the Fantastic Four movies for Fox. Yeah, the guy that played Captain America was frickin' Johnny Storm. Those are two wildly different personalities and two wildly different characters in general. So if you were to tell me, like, if I were to do this now, 15 years ago, if I were sitting here making videos and you were to tell me that Chris Evans was casted as Captain America, I probably would have known him as Johnny Storm. I probably would have said that's terrible casting. They should not use him whatsoever. That is not a good comic book casting because those are two wildly different characters. I would not believe in that. But when you watch this movie, you can tell that this guy is a great actor and he can easily slip into shoes of any role that he is given. And we've seen that because he played this character for about 8 years. And then years later, he goes to reprise his role as Johnny Storm in Deadpool and Wolverine last year. That just shows you how great of an actor this guy is, and the charm and the characteristics that he brings to this guy, and how much charm he brings. and just how well performed he is, and how he's able to bring that seriousness, and he can also be playful as we see later on in the MCU. Like Chris Evans is a great comic book choice for Captain America. Maybe we'll see him again. We don't know what Doomsday and Secret Wars are going to give us. We're just gonna have to wait for those movies to come out. But if Chris Evans does return as Captain America, I would be okay with it, even though he got a perfect ending in Endgame. If that's the last time we see Chris Evans in the role of Captain America is in Endgame, that is the perfect way to go out. But if we do see him come back, I would not be complaining. And speaking of Steve Rogers, I want to talk about the character of Steve Rogers. This guy, I really feel, is probably one of the best parts of this movie, and it's something that I noticed when I rewatched it last night is just how great of a character he is and what he's able to show, because that it just shows that he it doesn't give up. Like he's literally this small, like literally looks like 4'2" maybe, and he's skinny. He doesn't have a very pretty much has no meat on his bones. He's really skinny. He doesn't know how to fight. He wants to simply fight in the war to show that anybody can do it, and that anybody, including him, could literally fight in the war and do whatever they put their mind to, pretty much. And then he's given this opportunity to get this procedure in a way and get this experiment done on him to pretty much make him the way he is, the super serum that he is given. He is given the opportunity and he takes it, but he says that he'll only do it for good. And this shows what kind of a great character is, because I guarantee you, give that to any other character, any other superhero, they would just use it and they would just show off their muscles. He doesn't act any different. It just shows that he's able to fight in the war now. That is all he cared about. Like when he got those big muscles and when he got that Captain America build, it just showed that he used it for good. He did not want to do anything else for it. And he just shows that what kind of a great symbol he is. And when he fully becomes Captain America towards this movie, he doesn't look at it as a like a I don't know, some sort of vigilante or some sort of hero people can look up to. He simply dons that character just to show people hope. I have always said this, and a lot of people disagree with me, and that's okay because I understand why. I have always considered Captain America and Steve Rogers the Superman of the Marvel Universe. Superman is a symbol of hope. He is a symbol of hope to where if you are scared or nervous or anything like that, look up to the sky and you can see hope. I have always considered Captain America that. And sure, people think that he's an American hero because he has the word America in his name. That's not who he is. That's not the character that he actually is. That's just a character to him. Just a like a cosplay to him. Like he shows people there is hope and there is faith in the world, and if you ever are scared, you can look at him and you could say it's going to be okay. He will be there for you. Like Superman for the DC, Captain America to me is the Superman of Marvel. You could disagree with me all you want. You can say that this might not be true, but that's just what I've always thought, and that's how I've always looked at this character. And the way that they perfectly portrayed this character and how easily Chris Evans made us believe that this is Steve Rogers and from after playing Captain America just shows how great he's able to play it and just shows throughout the rest of the MCU of just how great of a character he is and how much more we learn of what kind of character he truly is, and that just shows how great of a person Steve Rogers truly is. This is more something that I noticed for the first time watching this movie, and just something that I kind of like about movies when I watch them, is that I really thought they brought the 40s to life pretty well, because I'm a big fan of period set movies, like war movies like this, I guess you could call it a war movie. It's not really though. It's more of a comic book war movie. And like when you look at movies like Saving Private Ryan or Hacksaw Ridge or whatever, and you see how well they're able to bring that to life. For this being a comic book movie, they do a pretty damn good job of bringing the 1940s to life and that war and that era of World War II and that world and the kind of the world of like I don't know, kind of like hopeless world or whatever. Excuse me, a hopeless world or I don't know, kind of stop believing in a way. They don't really bring that. I guess they don't really bring that part to life very well. But what they're able to do with the costumes and kind of like showing off the weapons and stuff like that, I really like that. They did a good job of bringing the 40s to life. One of the main issues that I have is kind of including Stark technology, which I get it. It's a Marvel, and Stark technology is pretty much like the pinnacle of Marvel at this point because of Tony and what he's done and what his father did before him and all that. You look at all that, and it's just like, okay, I get it, but I don't like the fact that they're using weapons because that just shows that when you see the technology there, it's just like, oh, that seems ahead of its time or whatever, and doesn't seem historically accurate. But what do I know? It's Marvel, so we don't give a shit. But yeah, I felt they brought the 1940s to life pretty well with the costumes and kind of in that world of Nazis in a way. They don't really do Nazis, they more do Hydras, if anything. But yeah, overall, I thought they did a pretty good job of bringing the 1940s to life. And throughout the movie, I really like the growth of Steve Rogers becoming Captain America, where he slowly becomes that way. It's kind of like Spider-Man. It's kind of like Peter Parker slowly transitioning into Spider-Man full time. But that's not what I'm trying to say here. But Steve Rogers slowly becoming Captain America in this movie is one of the best parts about it, to where like you get this short, skinny kid that shouldn't really be in the war, and you understand why everyone's saying that they should kick him out or not even have him in the fucking thing or whatever, to where he gets the superhero, he gets that super serum thing injected into him, and then he becomes this buff guy, and everybody looks at him in awe and like, whoa, what can this guy do? Because he's had so much hope, but he has all the muscles that he should have for a war. What is he going to be able to do? But and then it slowly grows to where he becomes Captain America, to where he kind of steps out of the shoe of Steve Rogers in a way. Now, again, Steve Rogers doesn't look at Captain America as a hero. He looks at him as a symbol in a way. So when I mean by stepping out of the shoes of Rogers, to where like he more becomes the idol that people want him to be, but Rogers is still Rogers. If anything, Captain America is not Steve Rogers. Like Steve Rogers is not Captain America. Captain America is Steve Rogers. So what I like about that is that slow growth of like Steve Rogers slowly kind of taking that place of Captain America in a way. I don't know if that all makes complete sense, but that's what this movie tries to do, I feel. That's what I get from this movie. That's what we get from a lot of origin story movies, to where it's just like where you get this with nobody pretty much, and they slowly get their powers, and they slowly step into that shoe full time. That's what they kind of do here. But instead of Steve Rogers become Captain America, Captain America kind of becomes Steve Rogers.
It's about the uniform. Whatever you want, pal.
Moving on to my mixed aspects, and one of my main ones is Red Skull. Now, Red Skull is kind of I think the most popular Captain America villain, that or the Winter Soldier, I guess. But like, I don't know, something about him just seems over the top in a way, because because he just seems really over the top, seems really corny. The guy that they got to play him, I really like the choice. He was the agent guy in the Matrix movies, which I really like him in that, and he plays a good villain and all that. But in this movie, I felt he was really goofy, and just his tone was just off from the rest of the movie. To where like he's like the main villain, and they kind of say that he was like a sidekick in a way to Hitler in a way, and that's what they kind of have him as. But I don't know, something about his tone and his quirkiness throughout the whole movie just seems like it doesn't feel like it fit into this movie. Like, sure, the movie's set in the 1940s and all that, and so like you're gonna have him as your villain because this is pretty much the Nazi of this is pretty much the Adolf Hitler of Marvel, because just who he was. And this movie also kind of has him set up the Tesseract, which later becomes a main focus of the MCU and Avengers and in Avengers Infinity War. So yeah, I don't know, just something about him just feels off in this movie. It didn't bother me, but just something about him just felt off throughout the whole movie. And also like his makeup that he was wearing. I don't know if that was full makeup, but like sometimes like I'd be watching it, and then like sometimes he'd be talking and stuff like around his mouth didn't really match what he was trying to say, and it kind of looked like CGI at some point. I don't know. Like again, some things just felt off, and I don't know if they used full practical effects for his face or if they used some CGI. But like if they did, then it's kind of noticeable, but also kind of fades away. And this kind of bummed me out when I put this in my mixed aspects, and that is the action of this movie. Now, I'm not saying the action is bad whatsoever, it's just bland, especially what we get later on in the MCU with like the Winter Soldier, Infinity War, just recently with Deadpool and Wolverine, and some like old and like movies before that, before the MCU with like Spider-Man and stuff like that. The action in this movie is very bland, but I can forgive it because this movie's not about the action. This is more about the story of Steve Rogers becoming Captain America. That is what this story really is, and that's what this movie really is, and that's what a lot of origin stories should be. But like the for this trying to be a war movie at the same time, the action movies were kind of bland. I don't know, it's just because of what we got later on in the MCU. I don't know that's the reason why kind of I don't know, bothered me in a way. But it's just like it's just really bland. It's just like it could have been better. But again, we got better on as we went in the MCU because this was like in the early days. This was back when Iron Man first came out. This is when they were still setting up the first Avengers movie. Now moving on to my negatives, and I only really have one, and it's a small negative, and that is some of the CGI does not look very good, and it does not age well whatsoever. But again, this movie's like 14 years old now, so I can forgive it for that. 13, 14, however old this movie is. This movie's a decade old now, and for this movie that came out in 2011, I don't expect the CGI to hold up greatly. Again, this was early days of the MCU. It's not going to be great by any means. But like there was just some moments like when Steve was a young skinny kid, like you can like sometimes like he'd be talking or walking around and you could see like this weird mark around his neck and where you can kind of tell that they just put Chris Evans's head on like a skinny body thing or whatever, or they just used something to make him look skinny. Like it was very noticeable at times, and it just really bothered me. Or like scenes where they're just like walking around and you can clearly see there's a green screen behind them. And I talked about it earlier with Red Skull, how sometimes his makeup looked like it wasn't matching what he was trying to talk about or whatever. But like some of the CGI for this movie, it just doesn't really age well, and if anything, it's a nitpick. But yeah, it bothered me when I was watching the movie, and it's just something I noticed when I was watching it the whole time. Like I was just watching, I'm like, oh, that does not look good. Oh, that does not age very well whatsoever. So yeah, that's just the one. That's one of the main things I noticed when watching the movie. But yeah, it's again, it's a small negative and it's a small issue for me, but it's just something I just noticed when I was watching it, and it just bothered me. Overall, guys, I really enjoy Captain America the First Avenger, especially rewatching some of these early MCU movies, seeing where we went from here. They still age well, and this is one of those movies that still ages well. Now, it still has its flaws. I still have some issues with it, but it's still an enjoyable movie, and it's still a damn good, enjoyable uh, origin story. And this was a great kickoff to what ended up becoming a great trilogy. So yeah, if you have not seen this movie yet, I don't know what you're doing. Go ahead, go and watch it. And if you're an MCU fan, and if you wanna get prepped for Brave New World, go ahead and rewatch it because it's a good time still. What do you guys think about Captain America: The First Avenger? Have you seen it? What do you think about it? Do you like this movie? Do you not like this movie? Is this one of your favorite MCU movies? Is this one of your least favorite MCU movies? Let me know in the comments below and we shall talk about it. If you like this video, like it. If you love to subscribe, hit the bell notification so you will get notified for all of my latest videos. And of course, until my next video, see you all next time.